Learn English through stories are 2 PDF. Adapted and modified by Kulwant Singh Sandhu. Contents: Children of India by Janet Harvey Kelman. 1. Chapter 3, The Story of Life and Death. 2. Chapter 4, The Story of Caste. 3. Chapter 5, The Story of Fate. Chapter 3, The Story of Life and Death. Long, long ago, the unknown spirit began to play a game of life and death, and he is still playing it. That is what a Hindu child is taught, so life is not a real thing to him, but is only make-believe. Yet the rules of this game are so hard and fast that none of the puppets can escape from them. The Hindu story of life and death all circles round one rule of the game. That rule is that everything anyone does and everything anyone says must be punished or rewarded in another life, so that a little Indian child believes that he has been alive on earth hundreds of times before, and that everything that happens to him in this life happens because of something he has said or done in a life that is gone by and which he forgets. He fears too very much to do anything for which he may suffer in another life, for if he does wrong in this life he may be born a woman, or a cow, or a fraud, or he may be sent to one of the hells to be tortured by demons there. Because of this, and because, too, the spirits of his gods may be in trees or animals or stones, he is very kind to animals, and he worships trees and stones. The round of birth and death is very long, for the full number of lives is 8,400,000, and if, after the soul has made many steps upwards, it breaks a rule of life, it may have to go away back to the beginning. The one great hope is that sometime in the dim future, by keeping all the rules of the game in one life after another, the spirit may be set free from birth and death, and may drop out of the endless game. It may not seem at first such a very terrible thing to go on living one life after another, but the thought of it has become an awful thing to those who believe in it. Life to them is very hard. Terrible famines come and bring hunger and plague and death. And men and women lay all that is left to them of food and of money before the gods, and pray them to send rain. Even when there is no famine in the land, the daily observances of custom and the weary round of toil depress the spirits of men, so that the more they think of anything beyond the work of the day, the more they long to give up living altogether. A South Indian folk song says, "How many births are past, I cannot tell. How many yet to come no man can say. But this alone I know, and know full well, that pain and grief embitter all the way." Quoted by C.A. Mason in Lux Christi. Chapter 4, The Story of Caste. Far back in the early days, 4 kinds of people sprang from Brahma the Creator to form the castes of India. The first, the Brahmin caste, sprang from his mouth to rule all the others. The second sprang from his arms to be the warriors of the land. The third sprang from his loins to be the businessmen and the landowners, and from his feet came the fourth to serve the others. The Brahmins are still the powerful caste. From amongst them priests are taken, and they rule all others. But the other 3 castes have been broken up into many smaller divisions, till one can scarcely trace the lines that mark the difference between the 4 that were spoken of long ago. And besides all the castes, there are thousands of those who are outside. They are called pariahs, and all the caste men look down on them and scorn them. Fakirs. In some parts of India, those who belong to different castes are as far apart from each other as if the lower caste men were not human beings at all, and a high caste man will not touch a low caste one even to save his life. the Brahmins are treated almost as if they were gods. Many of them live by the gifts of the people, so they do everything they can to strengthen the old customs and beliefs that make the other Hindus worship them. They have strange ways of keeping their power. If a Brahmin is angry with anyone, he will go and sit on his enemy's doorstep day and night without tasting food or drinking water. Even if the villager does not give in at once, he soon does, because he knows that the Brahmin will rather starve to death than leave his door, unless he gets his way, and the poor man thinks of all that may happen to him after death if he allows a priest to die of hunger on his doorstep. He thinks he may go to one of the places of punishment beyond the world, and after hundreds of years come back to earth as a worm or a fly, and so he does what the priest bids him, however hard it is. It is caste law that tells Hindu children what sin is, and many of its rules are about eating and bathing. No one may eat food with anyone of a lower caste. No one may marry anyone of a different caste. No one may change his religion. There are many rules about what the people of each caste may eat and how their food must be cooked. Many of the laws of caste speak of the honor that must be paid to Brahmins and of the punishments anyone who does not reverence them may suffer. Some of these punishments are so cruel that the government would interfere if anyone tried to enforce them now, but the fear of the pain that may come after death is strong enough to keep very many Hindus still in constant fear of the Brahmins, even though they cannot be punished so brutally in this life as they once might have been. Here are some sentences from the laws about caste. The Brahmin is by right the lord of all this creation. What being is there superior to him by whose mouth the gods eat oblations? When the Brahmin is born, he is born above the world, the chief of all creatures, to guard the treasures of religion. Thus, whatever exists in the universe is all the property of the Brahmin. No greater wrong is found on earth than killing a Brahmin. Certainly the king should not slay a Brahmin, even if he be occupied in crime of every sort. A Brahmin may take possession of the goods of the Sudra with perfect ease of mind, for, since nothing at all belongs to this Sudra as his own, he is one whose property may be taken away by his master. The leavings of food should be given to him, and the old clothes. If a man of low birth assault one of the twice-born castes with violent words, he ought to have his tongue cut out. If he lift up his hand or his staff against him, he ought to have his head cut off. The dwelling of Shandals and Swapakas should be outside the village, their clothes should be the garments of the dead, and their food should be in broken dishes. These are only a few out of many, and some of the laws are too cruel to quote here. Yet though all that is written in the old law of India, men have often risen there, who tried to break through the rules of caste, and there are other ancient writings that show that all Hindus have not believed in these differences between man and man. Small souls inquire, belongs this man to our own race or class or clan? But larger-hearted men embrace as brothers all the human race. But those who have held that caste law is not binding have never been able to break the power the priests held over the great masses of the people, and so caste law, and not the brotherhood of man, still rules. In many parts of India, a boy cannot choose what trade he will follow. If his father belongs to the carpenter caste, he must be a carpenter. If his father is a sweeper, he must be a sweeper. If his father is a robber, he will be a robber. In one place in the far north, when a little boy is born, his mother swings him backwards and forwards over a hole in the wall and says to him, "Be a thief, be a thief." There are castes of robbers and murderers still in India. The caste of the thugs was the most famous one of them all, but now the British government has taken under its control all those who still belong to it. They are kept in ground set apart for them, and none of them are allowed to go out to kill or to steal. Yet pilgrims still crowd to the beautiful marble tomb of the man who founded the caste of the Thugs 250 years ago. He is one of the saints of India, and the priests who guard his shrine cover the tomb with beautiful cashmere shawls and lay fresh flowers on it morning by morning. Chapter 5. The Story of Fate. When a baby is born in India, the lines between the bones of its skull can be traced just as they can be traced in a fair-skinned child. The mother of a white baby does not notice them much, but they mean a great deal to an Indian mother, for an ancient story is told about them. Very long ago, a little daughter was born to Brahma, the Creator, and its mother asked the father to tell her what would happen to the little child. Then the god Brahma turned his back to his wife and his baby, and stretched out his hand behind him towards the child. In his hand he held a golden pen, and he wrote with it on the baby's head. He could not see the letters he was writing, but his wife could, and as she read the words, she called out to Brahma to change the writing, because she would not have so sad a future for her child. Brahma wrote again, and this time the life he foretold was worse than the first one had been. Again the baby's mother refused to let him leave so cruel a fate on the head of the child, and once more he wrote. But this time, Brahma did not give his wife time to speak. Ere she could say anything, he threw away his golden pen, and since that day he has only written once for each child that has been born. The future that Brahma writes on the skull is called the fate, and so each Indian mother believes that everything that will happen to her child is fixed when she first traces on the little skull those curious markings which she calls the writing of the pen of Brahma. When a baby is born, there is great eagerness to know whether it is a boy or a girl. If it is a boy, there is joy in the home, everyone is glad, and the mother of the little child at once feels that she has been a good woman, and that the gods are pleased with her because they have given her a son. But if the baby is a girl, everyone is sad, and the father, if he is asked about it, may say, "It is nothing," for he thinks it a sorrow to have a little girl child born. He would far rather have a calf, because a cow is a sacred animal, but the birth of a little girl is a sign of the anger of the gods. Besides that, the father knows that he will one day have to pay a great sum to her husband at her marriage. When she is still very young, her husband will take her away to his father's house, so that she will never be able to do anything for her father and mother in their old age. So there are many reasons why a little girl is not welcome. She is a sign of the anger of the gods, she will cost a great deal of money, and she will never be able to help her parents. Sometimes when a father is told that he has a little daughter, he says nothing, but only clasps his thumb round the fingers of his hand, and that is a sign that the wee baby girl is to die. It is very easy to kill a little infant, and where everyone thinks that it is right, it can be done quietly, so that though those in the house know about it, no one will say anything. It is sad to think how many little children are killed in this way still, even before their mother's heart has grown tender to them, but some years ago, before the government of India set itself to stop this crime, there were hundreds of little baby girls killed openly every year. And if anyone had asked how fathers and mothers could be so cruel, the answer would have been, "It is our custom," or "It was her fate." For everything depends on fate to the Hindu, and no one can help anything that happens. If an animal is drowned in a well, he leaves it there. It was the creature's fate to fall into the well, and it is not his custom to cleanse the well. The children of the village may sicken and die because of the poison in the well, but that too is fate, and no one pauses to ask whether there may not be some other cause.